Welcome to Sociology of the Sweet Science, Season 2. This is the season premiere, and I'm honored to have on today Mr. Mauricio Sulaimán, head of the WBC. Mauricio, how are you doing today?
Very good, Patrick. Thank you so much. It's a great honor for me to be in this program with you, and here we are.
Perfect. I wanted to jump right into it and just ask you what would you consider to be the most pivotal moments in the WBC's evolution since its founding in 1963?
Well, the WBC has had as the only priority the boxer, the health, the safety, and of course the unity and fairness. The changes that have been made to the rules from medical data, from 15 to 12 rounds, to do the official weigh-in a day before the fight, the abolition of the 6-ounce gloves, the fourth rope in the ring, the mandatory medicals yearly before and after the fights, many of the rules that have been changed that have saved so many lives.
Now, when you guys introduced the 12-round change, when boxing used to be back in the day 15 rounds, how have these impacted the sport and boxer safety?
It took several years of medical research, which the WBC funded in UCLA, which provided information that led to the changes in this and other rules. Basically, dehydration plus fatigue become a mortal combination when you get punched. So after the 12th round, it was proven that through the dehydration, the fatigue, the exhaustion, basically just the fighters were not in a competitive state, and it was very dangerous. So they basically changed to 12 rounds. It could even be for 10 rounds, ideally. But that was the major change, and it had all the medical proof that made the change.
Absolutely. And how do you see the WBC's influence in shaping the structure of modern boxing, such as weight division, mandatory challengers, and ranking systems?
Yeah, so many rules have been implemented by the WBC over the years. Unfortunately, today, some boxing jurisdictions do not accept changes. For example, the instant replay that is not allowed in some countries or some states, the open scoring, which is a sensational rule, and a few others. But we are in a sport in which change is very difficult. There's resistance to change. We have so much technology that could make boxing safer and more fair, but the players of the game, promoters, TV stations, or the jurisdictions, they simply resist to understand that we live in 2025 and the sport should live up to what the fans and especially the fighters deserve.
Completely. And boxing has had long-standing controversies over scoring. We saw that last weekend in the Gervonta Davis fight, for example. And I wanted to ask, what would you support innovations like open scoring, a 5 judges panel, even AI, which we saw in the Fury Usyk rematch, as well as instant replay? Are these things that the WBC is able to implement in future years?
The WBC uses instant replay for 12 years already in most countries. The United Kingdom does not allow instant replay, and some states in the United States do not. Most other countries do allow instant replay to be in use for the justice. The open scoring, it was the WBC that has also done open scoring after the 4th and after the 8th round. We announced the official scores of the judges. And same, many countries, Japan, Thailand, Philippines, Mexico, all South and Central America, most Europe, but just a few countries with the most activity, which is the USA and England, do not allow such rule, which it is very good. It brings transparency to the sport, and it also provides the fighters the opportunity to understand where they are at the fourth and at the eighth round, where they are at. So these are rules that should be used, but some jurisdictions do not want to implement them.
As you mentioned, the WBC has involved in so many different nations throughout the world. I know when you guys first started, it was around 11 nations, but now today it's over 160. What were the key factors in that global expansion, and how has it changed the sport?
Well, the key factors was when my father was elected as president in 1975, he took the WBC and formed it as if it was a company, an enterprise. He studied business administration, so he took that model and put it into the WBC, establishing continental federations to be the members of the WBC, and those federations affiliating the countries from the region. So we have 9 continental federations: North America, Central America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Orient, etc. And that's how we have 176 countries affiliated formally and officially to the WBC.
What steps does the WBC take to ensure that decision making, such as approving fights and mandatories, is transparent and fair?
The WBC has a yearly annual convention in which each weight category is reviewed and ruled on regarding the mandatories for each division. This takes place in an open forum. Anyone can participate. Promoters, managers, boxers themselves come to the floor, put their case forward, and then the WBC makes the voting. And we publish the mandatories that come out from the convention, and every month or every 2 months at the latest, we publish what was ruled at the convention and what has happened in each division. We try to be very transparent, and we do it with pride because there's nothing hidden. Everything is out there. It's on the open floor, and we must respect and respond to what has been voted.
Is the WBC's financial data subject to independent audits or public disclosure? And would you be open to making these financial distributions more transparent to fighters and the public?
Every single cent that comes into the WBC goes back to boxing one way or another. We provide, we have a non-profit status, and we do a yearly submission, which is absolutely reviewed by the government in the United States, also in Mexico. Everything is transparent, and as I said, we have everything. We would hope that people would show what the WBC does with the money. Nobody publishes the positive things. That's a problem.
Absolutely. And we hear so many complaints about, sanctioning fees when there's a WBC bell or, any other organization for that matter. And the WBC being a nonprofit, I was wondering if you could talk more about, the WBC's clean boxing program and the way that that's impacted anti-doping efforts. Are there any plans to enhance enforcement or penalties for violations?
Yes, as we mentioned, we are a non-profit organization, and the money that is collected from the sanction fees goes into the different programs in boxing. The clean boxing program is one example. We spent a large amount of money every year on testing, on administration, and on education about the dangers of performance-enhancing drugs and protocols. We do have every single positive or adverse finding. It goes through a complete protocol. And like in a court, if you commit a crime, if you murder someone, you are entitled to a jury and a trial. That's the same thing. In a positive result, we do all the investigation, we do the necessary meetings, and then provide the ruling.
Now, how is the WBC supporting retired fighters in terms of financial aid, medical care, and mental health programs?
Thank you. We have the Jose Sulaimán Boxers Fund, which is administered by the Nevada Community Foundation independently. So all the money that is in the fund, nobody has access to it. When we get an application from a fighter, from a family member, from a friend, or even when we find out about someone who is in need, we produce an application which is reviewed by the Nevada Community Foundation, and it is decided whether the grant is provided or rejected. We have given $2.3 million in the past 10 years to boxers from all over the world, regardless if they were WBC champions or not. Everybody's eligible for aid. And mostly we support medicines, medical treatments, food, housing, and we pride for this sensational fund. We also have the WBC University, which has a wide variety of programs of education and even certification on mental health, on judges, referees, trainers, nutrition, many different topics. We have social responsibility programs that we do all over the world. We do, for example, Rocky Heron, who is a former DEA agent. He goes around the world giving lectures to schools, gymnasiums, companies, about the dangers of addictions. And these are very solid lectures that leave a huge impact for the kids, the parents, the teachers, the people who work there. We have the WBC Cares, which is a sensational group, 26 chapters all over the world. We go to children's hospitals, to gymnasiums, schools, to jails, with a variety of members of the WBC, boxers, and just give some inspiration to people and a lot of happy moments.
That's incredible. I feel like the WBC offers so much that people don't even know about. And things like the WBC University, is that possible to view these lectures online? Or do you guys share or have any resources that the public is able to view?
Yes, yes. WBC University is open. You can go directly into it. And this is the problem. We are a boxing organization. We do not have a channel. We don't have media outlets. The promoters are the ones who have the media outlets that have the promotions, airtime to promote. And usually people do not really care about the positive things. They don't like to read or see positive things. They rather see controversy, scandals, wrongdoings, or whatever. But we were happy. We are like, you're giving us a great opportunity to talk about these topics, and I'm really grateful for it. If we could have our word out more, it would be much better for the WBC, but we don't do it for recognition. We don't do it for popularity. We just do it because that is the purpose of existence of the WBC.
Absolutely. I think in boxing, focusing on controversies is, in many ways what draws in that clickbait, so to speak. But when we really go into it, there's so much in boxing that people don't even know about. And what the WBC is doing, for example, and has done for years, is instrumental in the sport and is only developing it in more in positive ways that are often not spoken about. And another thing that I wanted to discuss was female fighters. That's become really popular in the sport of boxing over the 21st century. How is the WBC working to ensure female fighters receive equal opportunities and recognition in the sport?
Well, the WBC was the first organization to recognize women boxing. We have the WBC Women Championship since 2004. Way before that, we did a lot of work with Christy Martin, Mia St. John, Laura Serrano, Leila Lee, other fighters. But maybe you are not aware, but boxing was illegal in some countries for women. Mexico law prohibited women to fight. So we did a lot of work in that area as well in Mexico and other countries. And we have produced 3 world conventions exclusively for women. We do not charge any sanction fees to the women fighters as a support. We have fought and promoted women to be included in promotions by promoters, to be given opportunities. And the fact is that in Mexico and many countries in Europe, at least once a month, the woman championship is the headline of the card, the main event of the card. So we pride to have been very instrumental in the development of women boxing. There are mistakes in which people try to make this a discrimination situation, which is not it. There are flyweights that make more money than middleweights, and there are bantamweights that make no money because the heavyweights make more. But it is not because of the weight category or the gender. It is the person. If you sell, it doesn't matter if you're man or woman, doesn't matter if you're heavyweight or middleweight or flyweight. So there's work to be done there. We have a social media education for fighters to improve their value, their market value, and many different committees that work with the fighters all around the world.
Well, what role does boxing play in society today beyond entertainment? Can you share any stories of how boxing has transformed communities or individuals?
Boxing is a huge benefit for any community, any society in the world. The reality is that boxers come from humble beginnings, from difficult areas where they have immediate opportunities to go the wrong way, to addictions, to vandalism, to trafficking, to simply dysfunctional life. And the gymnasium changes their life. They become disciplined, hardworking, they dream, and they get an opportunity to become someone in life. And they change the family, their neighborhood, their friends. So it's a huge impact that a boxer has in the community. Also, it promotes physical activation. It fights against mental health. You know, when you have mental situation, when you go in the gym and you hit the bag, all the problems go away. It's a great sport that has implications into society.
Yeah, completely. Boxing has long been a sport that provides opportunities for underprivileged fighters. I wanted to ask, what programs does the WBC support to help young talent from disadvantaged backgrounds?
We do have amateur boxing worldwide. We have the Green Belt Challenge, which is a very nice tournament taking place in many parts of the world. We supply equipment, ring, gymnasiums to different countries. We supply training of trainers, of anyone, doctors, boxers, trainers, judges, referees, etc. And as I said, we have many different programs through the ones I mentioned in social responsibility and WBC cares that have a lot to do with the society. As an example, we have programs in jail, Mexico, Argentina, Panama. We go into jail systems, create a boxing program, and these have resulted in tremendous benefits. These people who are in jail, the inmates, start training in boxing. They completely change their behavior. They change with the family. They come to visit them again. And most importantly, when they are released from jail, they get a certificate and a kit to become a trainer outside in the streets, in a gym, in a school. So, and we keep monitoring it. This is just one example. The jail system is sensational that we do. We have fighters that are retired. We invite them and teach them how to be speakers. We take them to give lectures to different places, different countries. And it's just an ongoing process that it's all around the world.
Completely. And boxing has been developing so much, especially in the last 2 years with what's going on in Saudi Arabia and all of that. But with that being said, we've seen changes in weight divisions. For example, the Bridgerweight division. I wanted to ask, do you see more weight classes being added, or do you believe boxing's current divisions are sufficient?
Well, I believe the current 18 with the addition of the Bridgerweight seem to be at this moment enough. Let me give a little bit background on the weight categories that were implemented. Back in 1909, the heavyweight champion weighed 168 pounds, which is today a super middleweight. The heavyweight category was established starting 175 pounds for many years. When the WBC implemented the cruiserweight division, was the gap between light heavyweight and heavyweight, recognizing that human beings became stronger, bigger, and heavier. So we introduced cruiserweight from 175 to 190. Years later, even with proposals from promoters from the United States and the several boxing commissioners, we increased from 190 to 200. And in 2020, we implemented the Bridgerweight, which is from 200 to 224 because of the size of the heavyweights. The current heavyweights go up to 280, 300 pounds, 70. And there are many small fighters of the heavyweight size, but are smaller, from 200 to 10 to 20, that would give too much advantage fighting. We had Caballel at 244, fighting Sang at 280. He was very strong in the body, working the body, and was successful, but the size difference, the weight difference is huge. That's why there have been implementations of new categories.
And I think one of the things that we saw when Martin Bacoli was called in 2 weeks ago on a last minute notice was just 48 hours and no training camp. He was 315 pounds fighting Joseph Parker, who was around 256. And we saw that, that size difference, was I think about 60 pounds, definitely didn't play to Bacoli's favor. But we see certain fighters, like a Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder being about a 40-pound difference, and how Fury would use his weight and lean on Wilder to tire out his legs. So to me, the heavyweight division is always one of the most fascinating ones because of that size difference. And it doesn't always benefit the heavier fighter, but in some cases, when they're able to use the weight and really work the other person's legs, they can use so many of attributes of their size against their opponent. With the lower divisions, there is so much of a weight cut. And I was wondering, with fighters who go from about 175 and they cut all the way down to 135, and then the next day they rehydrate and they go up to 160. Do you find that to be dangerous for fighters that are not naturally as big as other ones and that cannot cut down their weight as much as others?
Yeah, the most dangerous in boxing is dehydration. So if a fighter goes into the ring dehydrated, that's the most dangerous thing. That's why it was changed from the day of the fight to a day before. Every single fighter has to go through a process in which they dehydrate to make weight. The problem is that there are some methods that are dangerous, and they are being attended. We need to address those which are very dangerous. To cut weight in a short period of time is the most dangerous thing. Ideally, what we have a fighters, they have to weigh in 30 days before the fight, 14 days before the fight, 7 days before the fight. So they are gradually losing the weight. Always, whatever division you are, the last week is the most difficult one. But there have been methods that they have been implementing that are very dangerous. These methods, they fool your body. Can you imagine what they're doing to your kidneys, to your heart, to the brain? So it's weight, and everything that has to do with weight will always be the most important thing in the sport.
It's always been apparent when watching interviews with you in the past and now having the opportunity to speak with you is just how much the WBC, yourself, your father care about the safety of fighters. And I wanted to ask about other sanctioning bodies, and like the IBF, for example. I know the IBF has a rule where when the day of the fight, the fighter can go up by no more than 10 pounds. Is this something that the WBC looks at and considers or might implement down the line?
No, absolutely not. And with all respect to the IBF, the WBC does not consider weighing the fighter the day of the fight something for safety. Let's say you weigh him and he makes the weight, but then he had to lose weight in the morning to make that weight. That's very dangerous because your body generates 1 pint of encephalic fluid every 24 hours. So if you lose weight the day of the fight, you are going to have a dry brain. That's very dangerous. Also, you make the weight at 9 in the morning, there you're going to also rehydrate later the day. The best scenario is reduce weight gradually. We are requiring fighters to submit their weights every 30 days. You have to educate them. You have to fight against these dangerous methods of cutting weight. That's what we are doing every single day.
Absolutely. I think the safety of the fighter that you've stressed so much throughout the interview is very important. And I wanted to ask about VADA testing and drug testing. And we hear so much about scandals with fighters popping for certain things, and where sometimes it's they're unaware of it, and sometimes they might be aware of it. How has programs like VADA helped secure the safety of other fighters from not fighting opponents against on PEDs? And do you find that right now with VADA it is sufficient, or that would you like more stricter drug testing?
Well, doping is a major situation. The Olympic Games have shown how doping is a huge industry. There are even structured efforts for doping and this and this and this and that. Boxing is a sport that is not a game. So when you are competing, you are not winning by how fast you are or how many points you score. It is a contact sport. So it is very important to keep the sport as clean as possible. I do not believe that many fighters are willing to take performance enhancing drugs because that leads for them to have advantage and they can hurt their opponent. We have spent a fortune in creating the clean boxing program with VADA. The matter is drug testing is expensive. And we are funding as much as we can on tests. There are promoters who also contract tests to make sure that boxing is as safe as possible. The WBC rule since 1975 provides mandatory anti-doping test after the fight. One problem that we have is the jurisdiction where the fight takes place. We are in the hands of that jurisdiction who sometimes control the testing. So we are not certain exactly what panel they're testing for. Panel means what substances are you going to look for? VADA has the best, most inclusive panel, but it's also expensive. So it is a complicated matter. If more organizations, more boxing commissions, more promoters would put money into testing, it would be for a greater benefit. But being that said, it's a complicated issue, and we can only do what the WBC does. I cannot talk about anybody else.
When you're working on an undisputed fight, I was wondering how each of the sanctioning bodies work together and how the rules of a WBC fight are carried out when you have, say an undisputed fight where the WBA, the IBF, and the WBO, all of the belts are on the line. So are all of the rules of those four sanctioning bodies all being employed at once, or is there a resolution where some things are included and some things are not included?
We have a very good relationship, friendly, amicable relationship between the four organizations. There is a concept called unified rules, which the United States implemented. And that's what is agreed by the organizations to abide by the unified rules, even though the WBC is not in favor of that. The WBC has rules that are not in the unified rules. And that's why sometimes we have to contest. But it's a situation, it's difficult because it is the jurisdiction where the fight takes place, the one that ultimately has the decision. If it's a fight in Las Vegas, the Nevada State Athletic Commission. If it's in Japan, the Japan Boxing Commission. If it's in Philippines, GAB. If it's in the UK, British Boxing Board of Control. So it is not, it is surprising that at this day and age, we do not have a unified real set of rules. That's a problem.
Do you see a future where the WBC collaborates with other sanctioning bodies to create a unified world champion per division?
We have talked about this. We have discussed it at length. Every organization has its rules and its agenda. We collaborate. We try to do the unified, undisputed fights and keep them moving forward. But it's not easy. Each organization is independent and autonomous.
Completely. And I was wondering, why do you think it took so long to have an undisputed heavyweight championship fight, which we didn't see, since 1999 before the Fury Usyk fight? What are the things that hinder these undisputed fights from being made? Is it things like mandatories and people having to defend that and people just having to relinquish the belts? Or are there just other factors in place that the public might not be aware of?
Basically, you are absolutely correct that the champions have obligations. Each organization has different set of rules regarding the mandatories. And I can only say what the WBC has tried, which is to participate and to try to keep the mandatories to the strict of the greatest challengers to a undisputed champion. We have used the interim champion status to alleviate the activity for fighters, but it is complicated. It is 4 different heads making their own decisions, or even the promoters trying to make their point valid to do their fights that are preferable to them.
Completely. And on the subject of the interim champion belt, I also wanted to ask you about the franchise champion designation, which has caused some controversy and confusion. In hindsight, do you believe it was a success, or there are adjustments the WBC is considering?
It was a great success in practicality and in what happened in the ring. It was a complete failure of the way media fans took it, but the promoters like it, and it served the purpose of what you were saying. When you have a fighter of the caliber of an undisputed champion, for example, he's the kind of fighter that deserves to be franchise. It meant as a franchise or undisputed, you are not held to mandatories that are not of the level that that fighter should be fighting. It does not impose X, Y, or Z. It gives the liberty to those fighters of the highest profile to fight in a different weight category, to fight against the greatest challenge that he or she could have. But as I said, it was a great success with Canelo. It was a great success with in the lightweight division. We were able to crown Lomachenko. Haney became interim champion. Then he became champion. Then you had these unbelievable fights involving Lomachenko, Teofimo Lopez, Cambosos, Haney, Ryan Garcia, Campbell, Linares. I mean, if you look at that lightweight 2-year period, it was sensational. I feel very happy. It was because of the undisputed, of the franchise champion that it happened. But as I said, media and fans killed it.
Absolutely. And I think that the media in boxing, more often than not, is a detriment to a lot of the things that organizations such as the WBC are trying to do. And one of the things the WBC has been criticized for perceived favoritism in rankings and title decisions. But as you noted, that the mandatory challenger should be of a higher caliber. And I think that, say the IBF, for example, they're, very quick desire to have the mandatory challenger be that next fight can often be a detriment to big fights getting made. For example, in the WBC, there was controversy over Dillian White being an interim champion for so long and not fighting Deontay Wilder. But I think that the WBC is always trying to make the best fight, as you just talked about in that incredible lightweight run. I was wondering, how does the WBC ensure merit-based decisions and avoid the perception of bias?
We do it through transparency. To become mandatory contender, you have to win a final elimination bout. It is all transparent. It happens. And we publish it. As I said, every month, every 2 months, there's publicly released, but people they're lazy. They don't want to read this type of reports. I can challenge anyone to bring up a specific case and we can have a good argument and discussion about it. You mentioned Dillian White. Dillian White was mandatory when he became interim, but then he had a anti-doping situation with UCAD, and he was suspended by UCAD. So we had to go through that process, and he was put in recess because he was not eligible. When he was cleared, we gave him the benefit of the doubt instead of, we could have forced another investigation. Anyway, he was mandatory and he got knocked out by Povetkin.
Now, yeah, no, that's a perfect example. And I think that you guys are always making the best fights and trying to do that. And I wanted to ask, with the rise of MMA and influencer boxing, how does the WBC ensure that traditional boxing remains relevant to younger audiences?
That's a problem. That's a big problem. One, we are not promoters, but we, as WBC, go all out to try to promote the sport. We do the social responsibility activities that I've been telling you. We partner to support promotions. For example, February 1st, it was a big promotion in Las Vegas. So we talked to PBC. We went to a boxing gym, had the discussion about drugs. We gave them tickets to the kids that came with the family. We did special commemorative T-shirts and social media. So we promote events. We promote boxing. We go to Pope Francis to promote boxing. We go with Donald Trump, with the president of Mexico. We're going to have on April 6th a large, massive class in which thousands and thousands of people at the same time will do a boxing class for 30 minutes all over the country. We did it in Mexico City twice, and now this year it's all over the country, 32 states. And next year it will be a worldwide class. We do commemorative belts to give interest to people that maybe they don't watch boxing, but they like art, and they see this piece of art. We are in the movies, in the songs, in paintings. So we promote a lot boxing. Why is it difficult now? Because now kids have too many different options for entertainment. Social media, video games, movies, or simply watch Netflix. They don't watch television anymore. How old are you?
Just turned 25 years old.
I bet you don't watch too much television. You must watch a lot of Netflix and maybe sports. You watch live programming, but to find my kids, they don't watch television.
Believe it or not, I am the only one of my friends that actually still subscribes to cable because I grew up on it, and there's a bit of nostalgia just, flipping the channels. And also I really do enjoy, watching news and getting different perspectives through whether it be a Fox News, a CNN. So to me, I think it partially is just a nostalgic element of TV that I do enjoy. But with that being said, we have pay-per-views today. They're on DAZN, they're on Amazon Prime. They're no longer ordered through your cable package. You don't need a cable package to watch a pay-per-view. And on the subject of pay-per-views, I wanted to ask you about the different pay-per-view prices. With the incredible card that we saw in Riyadh, the last crescendo, that was 7 huge title fights. And that only costs $26 in America after taxes, about $30. Whereas on Amazon, we had $90 pay-per-views. Do you think that the pay-per-view price discrepancy is something that factors into viewership and the amount of people that are actually going to watch the fight?
It's a very complicated topic because pay-per-view became a huge business in the 1990s when you had the evolution of networks. First, it was radio, then came television. Everybody could watch boxing on free channels, ABC, CBS, etc. Then came cable, HBO, Showtime, ESPN. Then came pay-per-view. Now today we have platforms, digital platforms. So the perfect scenario for boxing is a combination of all of them. How do you get to know a fighter? Through free television. That it's difficult to get to be a pay-per-view fighter without having been known constantly. But the problem of pay-per-view now is there's so much piracy. People steal the signal, and very few people pay to watch the events because they are stealing the signal. The pricing, that's a matter that has to do with the strategy of the promoters. But if you buy a fight, $90, usually you get with your friends to watch an event, 5, 6, 10. So if you divide that, if you go to the movies, how much you're going to spend? 50,
In New York,
60?
in New York City, an IMAX ticket is $32 and a regular ticket is $22.
$22 plus hot dog and nachos and whatever. If you go with your girlfriend, multiply by 2. So if you in reality analyze the price of a pay-per-view, it is not expensive if you put everything in consideration. If you get together with a few friends, make a nice party, and just watch it and divide everything between everyone. But the problem is the quality of the fights, and I think there was an exaggeration of many going to the pay-per-view system instead of just putting them on cable.
And that's such an interesting thing that you mentioned about piracy, because I think that is such an issue for the sport of boxing as a whole. I was wondering if there's things that the WBC and just the rest of the boxing world is doing to combat piracy in the sport.
You know, it is a problem of society and police, not of a sport, or unless there's technology that comes around, that comes encrypted, where it is not possible to steal. But I have seen these so-called reporters or influencers, they get the television and they put their phone and they're commenting the fight on their network. While showing the fight, they're doing like a commentating. That's stealing the so it's so many different ways, and it's very unfortunate. If it was a matter of morale and people would not steal, then it would be a different case.
Completely. And I know, just as you just mentioned, that live stream influencer thing where they will give their own commentary to it. Even for a fight that was technically free, if you had a subscription to Netflix, the travesty that was Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, there was an ex-NFL player named Antonio Brown, and because of the issues in the stream with Netflix, his stream had 7 million views, and the fight overall on Netflix, I believe, drew 18 million. And what was conflicting as a boxing fan with that fight is the undercard. We had genuinely good fights on the undercard for the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, which is why I watched it. But as soon as it the main event happened, it was just such a disappointment to see. And it was something that, as a boxing fan, was very difficult to watch. And yet, my friends who know me as a very passionate boxing fan, the only fight that some of my friends have talked about with me is that fight. And they're not talking about Bivol, Beterbiev, Benavides, Morel. They're talking to me about Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because it's the last thing I want to talk about. If anything, I'll talk about the undercard, but I did not want to talk about that fight or even let alone watch it. And I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on this celebrity and crossover boxing world with YouTubers and MMA fighters and so forth? Do you believe it hurts or helps the sport?
Both. If it is an event that has respect to the sport, that gives, it's not a threat to a legacy like Mike Tyson. Jake Paul has fought fighters. You know, he fought Hughie Fury, and I mean, he respects the sport. He trains hard, but he's an influencer. He's into many other different things. That fight of Mike Tyson, I did not like in any way because it hurt Mike Tyson's legacy. Because at 58 years old, it's impossible. I'm 55, and if I want to play, I was a goalie or a pitcher. I cannot even throw from here to the next door. But if you do fights of influence without the medicals, without the proper training, without the proper assessment, it's very dangerous. What is good is when they do good events with all the matters that are considered, and it brings millions of new eyeballs. That is the positive. But it's a lot of risk. It's not a game. If you saw Holyfield last performance, that was such a terrible one. And those things I simply cannot support. And it's very dangerous. And it does not do good for boxing. But there are some that really do good for boxing.
100%. And I really thought that the Holyfield fight was, almost as difficult to watch as the Tyson fight. And that also was a spectacle. I believe, President Trump was even involved at that card giving some commentary. And you mentioned earlier that, you work with President Trump, but also one that I was very surprised to hear you mention was Pope Francis. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about working with Pope Francis.
We met Pope Francis. He has a non-religious foundation, and his wishes are to educate as many as possible through sports, entertainment, art, and technology. So he gave the WBC the BoxVal, Boxing with Values program, that we have run since 2017. And it's just a tremendous, great opportunity to serve Pope Francis and to do it through our sport and try to get as many kids into a good line of values.
That's incredible. I did not know about that at all. What an incredible story. I wanted to end by asking, what do you want your legacy as WBC president to be? And what is your vision for the future of WBC and boxing?
My legacy, I wish that to be remembered as the son of Jose Sulaimán, to be remembered as a person who followed his father's footsteps with dignity and honorability. And our immediate concern is the financial future of fighters. We are starting a process where they must have a financial retirement plan in order to compete for the WBC. So that's going to be a fun thing to do.
It's incredible. Thank you so much again for coming on the season 2 premiere of Sociology of the Sweet Science. And I look forward to speaking with you again and seeing you around many more fights.
Thank you so much. I will add your email address to the WBC Daily News, so you can get acquainted with some of the things that we do.